If this video suddenly goes offline, assume they finally found me. I'm not trying to scare you. Well, maybe a little, but mostly I'm trying to warn you. What we uncovered in Antarctica was never meant to see daylight, and the people who sent us there made that very clear afterward. I can still hear the way they spoke to me in that freezing interrogation room. Like I was already a dead man, they were politely escorting toward the end of his usefulness. I'm shaking while recording this. Not from the cold, though it's hard to get that place out of your bones, but because I know what's hunting me isn't far behind. I keep hearing footsteps outside my door, even though no one else has lived on this floor in months. Sometimes I hear breathing. Sometimes that sounds like my own. But I'm getting ahead of myself. You clicked this because of the title, right? Because you want to know what we found inside that pyramid. I get it. You should want to know. Curiosity is a powerful thing. It's the same thing that pushed us forward when we should have turned back. The same thing that made us ignore the warnings, the restricted files, the coordinates with half the numbers redacted. Curiosity is the reason I'm still alive, and the reason one of my team isn't. Before I tell you about the Forbidden Chamber, the one none of us were supposed to see, I need you to understand something. We didn't stumble onto history. We didn't discover ruins. We trespassed into something ancient, something aware, something that had been waiting. And once you cross that threshold, it doesn't matter who you are or how far you run afterward. It marks you. I'll explain everything, piece by piece. You deserve to know what's buried beneath miles of ice, what was locked away long before humanity took its first breath. Just remember, I'm risking everything by telling you this. Because this isn't a story about what we discovered, it's about what followed us back. People always ask why I agreed to join the expedition in the first place, and the truth is, I didn't have a good reason not to. That's how they get you. One email with a non-disclosure agreement attached, one obscene payment offer, one vague promise of scientific significance, and suddenly you're packing winter gear and pretending you're not walking straight into something you'll never walk out of clean. If you've followed my channel for a while, especially since the Arctic dig story, you already know I'm not the trust the experts type. I've seen too many experts lose their minds staring into things they weren't trained to understand. So when I walked into that briefing room and saw Dr. Hale hunched over a stack of blurry satellite images like a desperate gambler clutching his last chips, I knew we were screwed before he even said a word. "Look at this line," Dr. Hale murmured, tapping a ruler against one of the photos. His glasses slid down his nose every time he leaned forward. "That's not ice stratification. That's a structure. Man-made. Or something made." Marin, our camerawoman, let out a low whistle. "So we're flying halfway across the world to film a suspicious rectangle? Riveting." She raised her camera as if already recording, her trademark sarcastic grin in place. She joked when she was nervous, meaning she joked a lot. Bishop sat behind her, arms crossed so tightly over his chest it looked like he was trying to compress his own ribcage. Ex-military, hired security, the silent type who'd probably wrestle a polar bear if it got too close. When Hale talked about structures under the ice, Bishop didn't roll his eyes like I did. He just stared, jaw locked, like he already knew what kind of thing lived under miles of frozen wasteland. The briefing itself felt wrong. Too polished. Too choreographed. The research sponsor, some international conglomerate with a name so bland it felt like a disguise, kept every explanation just vague enough to raise suspicion. Half the documents we were handed had entire sections blacked out. One envelope was sealed shut with red tape. I still remember sliding it toward the project lead and asking, "What's in here?" He gave me a thin smile, the kind that didn't reach his eyes. "Information above your clearance level." Above my clearance? I'm the one freezing my ass off out there. You don't need what's inside that file to complete your part of the mission. Then why bring it at all? He didn't answer. He only pushed it further out of my reach. That should have been my cue to walk away. Instead, I stuffed the unopened file into my backpack, where it throbbed like a headache I wasn't ready to face. The rest of the briefing played out like some sanitized recruitment ad. Charts, flight plans, diagrams that told us nothing. Every time Marin raised her hand to ask what exactly we were looking for, the project lead dodged the question. Subsurface anomalies. Thermal inconsistencies. Potential historical artifacts. Nothing about pyramids. Nothing about forbidden chambers. Nothing about the warnings etched into ice older than civilization itself. It was all so normal. And that was the scariest part. Normalcy is how horror hides itself. Afterward, as we boarded the transport plane, Hale pulled me aside. You understand the importance of this mission, don't you? I understand you're obsessed with something you barely understand. His eyes gleamed. Not obsessed. Chosen. I didn't like the way he said that. I liked even less that Bishop heard him and didn't argue. As the engines roared to life, I glanced at the coordinates printed on our mission packet. I checked them earlier against 3 different mapping databases. None of them matched anything. No landmarks. No terrain notes. No satellite tags. The coordinates they gave us didn't exist on any official map. And it all started the moment we touched down on the ice. Antarctica is the kind of place that tricks you into thinking it's harmless. When we first stepped off the plane, the horizon stretched in every direction like a blank page, brilliant and blinding. So white it felt holy. The air was knife-sharp, the kind of cold that makes your lungs feel smaller. For a moment, we all just stood there, squinting into the endless expanse, breathing clouds into the silence. But beauty doesn't cancel out dread. If anything, it sharpens it. The radio interference started almost immediately. Our comms crackled with static, warping Bishop's voice into something mechanical whenever he tried to check in with the pilot. At first, we chalked it up to atmospheric distortion, but the pilot shook his head. "This isn't weather," he muttered, tapping the side of his headset. "Something's jamming us." Before we could ask what he meant, another helicopter appeared. Same model as ours, unmarked, flying low. It approached, hovered a few hundred yards away, and just stayed there. No landing. No radio call. No insignia. "Are they with us?" Marin asked. Hale squinted through the frost on his glasses. We weren't assigned a second craft. The helicopter shadowed us all the way to Outpost K-12, never getting close enough for us to see the pilot. When we landed, it banked left and drifted behind a ridge, vanishing as silently as it had appeared. Bishop stared after it long after the rest of us moved inside. "They were watching us," he said quietly. "Not escorting. Watching." Inside the outpost, the warmth felt artificial, thin, temporary. A handful of local researchers worked there, their faces windburned and tired. They greeted us politely enough, but the moment Hale mentioned our destination, the room changed. Shoulders stiffened. Conversations died. One man dropped a metal mug that rolled across the floor, clattering too loudly. "We're headed south," Hale said, tapping the sealed mission packet as if it were proof of divine authority. "Coordinates ending in 77.4. No one responded. They just stared. Finally, an older researcher shuffled forward, his eyes shadowed with exhaustion. "You don't go to the southern structures," he said. "No one goes there anymore." "Anymore?" I asked. "What happened?" He shook his head. "It's not my story to tell. But the ice remembers." Before we could press him, someone from his team grabbed his arm and pulled him away, whispering sharply in a language I didn't recognize. The message was clear: shut up. We spent the night at the outpost. Though spent the night is generous. None of us slept. The wind outside keened like something alive, slipping through gaps in the insulation and making the walls vibrate. Every time I drifted toward sleep, I'd hear a faint buzzing in the floor, like machinery running deep below the foundation. "Anyone else hear that?" I whispered in the dark. "Yeah," Marin said from the cot across the room. "Creepy, right? It's like the floor's an amplifier." I didn't want to admit it sounded familiar. A rhythm. A pulse. By morning, the wind had calmed, and for a moment it felt like the world had reset. We geared up, dragged our sleds outside, and started the long trek south. The outpost crew watched from the doorway. None of them waved. The snow was dazzling under the sun, too dazzling. Every direction looked the same. Endless white plains, ridges like frozen waves, the distant glint of untouched crystals. It should have felt peaceful. Instead, every step felt like trespassing. Hours into the journey, Bishop stopped abruptly. "Something moved," he said, pointing toward the far right ridge line. I followed his gaze. Nothing but sun glare and drifting snow. "What did you see?" Hale demanded. Bishop's eyes narrowed. "Tall. Too tall." "That's descriptive," Marin muttered. "Maybe it was a trick of the light." "No," Bishop said. "It was standing still, watching us." Then it walked away. We exchanged looks, half nervous, half annoyed. Bishop wasn't jumpy. If he said he saw something, he saw something. But there were no tracks. Nothing disturbed. Just the sweeping, merciless blank. The farther we traveled, The more the hum from the outpost followed us, faint at first, then growing, threading through the ice beneath our boots like a subterranean heartbeat. Our equipment picked up nothing. Our microphones buzzed, glitching every few minutes. Even our watches lost time. At one point, I crouched and pressed my glove to the ground. The vibration pulsed steadily, too regular to be natural. Not wind, not movement, more like intention. "We shouldn't be here," I whispered. "Relax," Hale said, though he wouldn't meet my eyes. "We haven't even reached the site." But something had reached us. The hum intensified just as we approached a shallow basin. The snow looked normal, smooth, undisturbed. I was about to step forward when the ice beneath us gave a long, low crack, like a sigh. "Marin, don't move," I started. Too late. The ground shuddered, the hum roared, and a massive sheet of ice buckled under our weight. Snow collapsed in a spiral, sucking us downward in a blinding flurry. I thought the hum was the worst of it. Then the ground collapsed beneath us. The crack of breaking ice is not a sound you forget. It's sharp, like a bone snapping under too much pressure. I felt it through my boots before I heard it, a tremble running up my legs as if the ground itself were warning us to step back. But curiosity, as always, overruled good sense. We edged toward the fissure, Marin with her camera up, Dr. Hale with his eyes gleaming like a man finally seeing proof of a lifelong obsession, and Bishop scanning the white horizon as if expecting it to strike. The ice caved in with a sudden, coughing collapse. A gust of warm air, yes, warm, rose from the opening. Antarctica, middle of nowhere, negative temperatures. And yet the breath of whatever lay beneath us rolled upward like an exhale from something ancient. "You've got to be kidding me," Marin murmured, zooming in on the black shape emerging from the dusted blue ice. Not rock, not metal, something else entirely. It was the top of a massive pyramid. Black, so black it seemed to drink the light around it. Its edges met at angles that felt wrong to look at, as if they weren't obeying the same geometry the rest of the world followed. I blinked, and a line that had been straight a moment before curved. Blinked again, and it was straight. My brain stuttered, insisting something was off. Dr. Hale didn't hesitate. He slid a gloved hand down the exposed surface, his breath fogging the air. "It's warm," he whispered. Bishop frowned. "Warm how? Biothermal? Geological vent?" Hale's voice cracked. "Or artificial?" That word echoed in my chest. Artificial. I crouched next to him, placing my own hand on the pyramid. He was right. The surface wasn't just warm. It pulsed, faintly, as if something moved behind it. Not mechanical, not natural, more like a heartbeat too large to comprehend. "Guys," Marin called softly, "tell me I'm not losing it. Are the symbols changing?" Symbols, etched shallowly into the stone, shifted like reflections on water. At first, they were jagged lines, then curves, then shapes I recognized but couldn't place, like memories from a dream I never had. Each time I looked away and then back, they'd morphed. Familiar, then foreign, then familiar again in the worst way. Hale leaned in so close his nose almost brushed the carvings. "They're reactive," he breathed, entranced. "They're responding to us." "Yeah," Marin muttered. "Like a bad date." But behind the humor, her voice trembled. Bishop didn't speak. He was staring at the ice behind us, jaw clenched. Later, he told me he kept seeing movement, tall shapes, almost human, slipping in and out of the blowing snow. At the time, he just said, "We shouldn't be standing out here." He was right. The ice groaned, a long, resonant complaint, and a web of cracks laced outward from the opening. The warmth rising from the pyramid had weakened the structure beneath us. Every second we stayed was a gamble with gravity. Hale was already lowering himself into the widening gap. "We have to go in," he insisted. "This is history. This is everything." "Or a grave," Bishop snapped. I didn't say anything, because even with fear scratching the back of my throat, even with the symbols crawling behind my eyes like insects, I felt something pulling at me. A pressure, a whisper without sound, a suggestion, and I swear, for a heartbeat, I heard my own name. Marin's camera flickered, the screen distorting into static. Then a second of pure black. Then an inverted image, colors wrong, angles wrong. She smacked the side of the device. "Don't do this to me now." Later, we found the footage corrupted, timestamps scrambled, frames missing or replaced with symbols that looked disturbingly like what we'd seen on the walls. At the moment, though, We just assumed the cold was messing with it. The ground shuddered again. Chunks of ice tumbled into the widening shaft, clattering off the pyramid's surface and vanishing into the darkness below. We move, Bishop said. Now. Hill was already sliding down. Marin followed, cursing under her breath. Bishop waited for me, eyes scanning the empty white horizon that suddenly didn't feel empty at all. I don't like this, he muttered. Something's watching. I felt it too, a pressure between the shoulder blades, a weight on the air. But the ice cracked again, louder, deeper. We had no choice. The ice is going, I said. Inside. Go. Bishop nodded, and we descended into the darkness where the warm breath of the pyramid waited for us. As I lowered myself down, the symbols glowed faintly, not with light, but with awareness. Later, I'd realized the truth. I didn't know then that the symbols were already inside my head. We had no choice but to go inside. The ice was cracking fast. The tunnel sloped downward at an impossible angle, too steep for natural formation, too smooth for human construction. Our boots squeaked against the obsidian-like surface. The walls swallowed our flashlight beams, dimming them as though the pyramid were drinking the light the same way it drank warmth. The further we descended, the more the air changed. Not colder, not warmer, just heavier, pressing against the skin, pressing into the lungs. Behind me, Marin muttered, "If this thing collapses, just bury me in the snow next time. At least that's normal." Hale didn't even respond. He was practically vibrating with excitement, running his gloved fingers across the seamless walls, whispering to himself. Bishop kept glancing over his shoulder, gun raised, though the only sound was our own breathing. Too loud, too fast. Then something strange happened. When we turned a bend, the tunnel behind us shifted. I don't mean it curved or angled differently. I mean I turned my head for 1 second, and the passage I'd just walked looked longer. The walls were closer together. The texture slightly different, like the place was adjusting while unobserved. I blinked hard. Did the hallway just move? Marin exhaled. Nope, not today. Don't start with that. But Bishop grunted. It's changing. I thought it was just me. Hale ignored us. Adaptive architecture, he whispered, exhilarated. Incredible. Incredible. His excitement made my stomach twist. He wasn't seeing the danger, only the discovery. We pushed deeper. The tunnel opened into a narrow chamber marked by carvings that looked older than anything I'd ever studied. They weren't symbols this time. They were murals. Humanoid shapes hunched and kneeling, etched into the black stone with painful detail. All of them bowing toward towering, faceless beings whose proportions were wrong. Limbs too long, torsos too thin, heads elongated like unfinished sculptures. The kneeling figures had their hands over their ears, or their eyes, or both. The stone was too eroded to be sure, but the fear in the posture was unmistakable. Marin raised her camera, trying to steady her breathing. These people look like they regret showing up. Or they were worshipping, Hale insisted. This is ritualistic reverence. Bishop shook his head. That's not reverence. That's submission. And you know that how? Hale snapped. Because I've seen prisoners kneel the same way. Silence followed, thick and heavy. The deeper we went, the more those murals appeared. Each set depicted different stages. First the humans standing, then kneeling, then pressing themselves flat against the floor. Toward the end, the humanoid figures looked less human, more stretched, altered, as though the act of kneeling had changed them. Every echo seemed delayed by a few seconds. I'd hear Marin's joke bounce back, but distorted, like the walls were repeating our voices in a mocking tone. But the worst part? Sometimes the echoes came even when no one had spoken. A faint whisper, a breath, a word I couldn't recognize. Did you guys hear that? I whispered. Marin nodded stiffly. Yep, heard something, not checking what it was. Bishop spun, flashlight sweeping the chamber. Something's following us. I keep catching movement behind the lights. Hale turned on him. We have no evidence of. There. Bishop snapped, pointing toward the darkness. Tall, thin, moving. My skin crawled. I didn't see it, but I felt it. A presence hovering just beyond visibility, too close for comfort, too big to be human. We continued arguing as we walked, tension snapping with every word. This is insane, I said. We need to head back. The walls are changing. The echoes. No, Hale insisted. We are the first humans to enter this structure. Leaving now is how we stay alive, Bishop cut in. They went back and forth, voices echoing oddly, stretching, distorting, rising a half-second later in a whispered mimicry. Then it happened. We all spoke at once. Bishop telling us to stop, Hale shouting about scientific priority, Marin telling them both to shut up. And behind me, my own voice whispered, "Keep going." I froze. Marin saw the look on my face and went pale. What? What did you hear? I swallowed hard, trying to force air into my tightening chest. Me, I managed. I heard me. Right behind me. Bishop stepped in front of us, weapon raised. Nobody talks unless I know it's you. Otherwise, don't open your damn mouth. Hale shook his head. Do you hear yourselves? Echo anomalies are common in geological structures of high density. Stop rationalizing everything, Marin snapped. Say one creepy thing happened, and it's normal. I dare you. It wasn't empty. At the center of the vast room stood a towering obsidian monolith, perfectly rectangular, smooth as flowing water, yet sharp enough to hurt the eyes. It pulsed faintly with a slow internal light, like something trapped inside was breathing. The pulse matched my heartbeat. No, worse. It controlled it. I've never seen anything like this, Marin whispered, her voice trembling. The chamber swallowed her words whole. No echo this time. Just silence. Hale was already jogging toward the monolith, barely able to contain himself. Look at the floor, he called. These markings, they're not carvings. They're restraints. He was right. The stone beneath us was etched with deep scratches that formed spiraling patterns around the monolith. Not symbols. Not art. Binding circles. Some of them looked freshly gouged, as though whatever they held had tested the limits of its imprisonment. Bishop scanned the room, gun raised, jaw set like stone. This place feels wrong. We should back out slow. Very slow. Shut up. Hale snapped, not even glancing at him. You're going to want to see this. I didn't want to see anything, but I forced myself to look anyway. Scattered around the edges of the chamber, half buried in dust and crystallized frost, were bodies. Not skeletons. Bodies. Mummified by cold, skin stretched tight across bone like parchment. At first I thought they were ancient. Then I noticed the clothing. Lab coats. Jumpsuits. A patch that read U.S. Antarctic Program, 1947. A military uniform from a branch logo that didn't exist anymore. A camera rig decades older than anything Marin carried, its film still loaded. These people, Marin whispered. They're from different time periods. This one looks like the 60s. This one's older. How? How long has this place been here? Long enough, Bishop said quietly. He kneeled by one of the corpses, brushing snow off the collar. This guy's from Operation High Jump. My blood went cold. That expedition had been buried under classified reports and conspiracy theories. Some of you watching know exactly what I'm talking about. The emails you sent me last year? The files you claimed were leaked? The ones I told you were probably fake? Yeah, I'm not so sure anymore. One of the corpses was reaching toward the monolith. Fingers broken, frozen mid-stretch. As though he'd been crawling toward it when he died. Or crawling away. Hale stood less than a foot from the monolith now, pupils dilated. It's not reacting to me. Interesting. Perhaps. It's reacting to something. I cut in. Because the moment I stepped closer, the monolith brightened. A faint hum rose from within it, matching the hum under the ice from earlier. Hale spun around, eyes wide. You. It's responding to you. No, I whispered. It's noticing me. The surface rippled like dark water disturbed by a drop. A pattern emerged, something like a handprint pressed from the inside. I stumbled back. Okay. Nope. We're done, Marin said, backing toward the archway. Forbidden ancient tech that responds to the narrator? That's how horror movies start, and I'm not dying in one. Hale ignored all of us. He had moved on to something behind the monolith. A structure I hadn't noticed at first because it blended so perfectly with the chamber's darkness. A sarcophagus. Mechanical. Organic. Both. Neither. Its exterior looked like polished metal fused with bone, ribbed like something alive but asleep. Thin, glowing fractures spider-webbed across its surface, pulsating softly, in sync with the monolith. What the hell is this? Bishop muttered. A containment vessel, Hale breathed. Look at the filigree along the edges. And here, the locking mechanisms, these aren't designed to keep people out. Marin frowned. Then what? To keep something in. My skin crawled. The sarcophagus wasn't lying flat. It was upright, like a coffin waiting for its occupant to step out. Then I heard it. A soft, wet sound. A breath. A breath. The sarcophagus exhaled. I felt the air shift. Just a whisper of movement, but entirely wrong, like the air itself recoiled. Hale, Bishop growled, step away from it. Now. Hale didn't move. He was transfixed, tracing his fingers along the glowing fractures. This material, this isn't human. It's not even terrestrial. You don't know that, I said. He laughed under his breath, a high, tremoring sound. I do. I saw glimpses in the symbols. Patterns. Warnings. This isn't a tomb. It's a prison. And the thing inside, he swallowed hard. It's knowledge. Pure knowledge. Something older than language. Older than thought. That's not knowledge, Marin said. That's a nightmare incubator. The monolith pulsed faster. The hum grew louder, vibrating the chamber, rattling the frost from the ceiling. I felt the pressure building in my skull, behind my teeth, inside my chest. It was calling, not to Hale, to me. One of you watching is going to pause this video and zoom in on the frame I'm about to post. Don't. Trust me. Some details aren't meant for your eyes. Hale pressed his palm to the sarcophagus. A thin crack lit up beneath his hand, racing upward like lightning trapped under glass. Hale, I shouted. Stop. He didn't listen. He whispered, open. The monolith emitted a deep, resonant thrum that shook the whole chamber. Light burst from its center, cascading upward like a reversed waterfall. The sarcophagus responded, the fractures widening, glowing hotter. A smell like burning metal filled the air. Bishop seized Hale by the collar and yanked him back. You trying to kill us all? Bishop barked. Hale fought him. You idiot. This is our chance to communicate. To evolve. To die, Bishop snapped. Everything about this place screams run. The floor trembled. A sharp metallic groan reverberated through the chamber, so loud I had to cover my ears. The walls rippled, then contracted slightly, as if the entire pyramid had taken a breath. The corpse nearest us slid an inch across the floor. Oh hell no, Marin whispered. Then the sarcophagus moved. Not much, just enough. The surface bulged outward, like something inside shifted its weight. Like something inside was waking up. I stepped back, every hair on my body standing upright. We need to get out. Now. Hale's eyes gleamed with feverish joy. It's stirring. Do you realize what this means? Yeah, Marin snapped. That our insurance isn't going to cover this. Another crack tore down the sarcophagus, this one big enough to spit out a puff of icy air. The chamber lights, if you could call the faint glow on the walls lights, dimmed, darkened, flickered like they were afraid. Bishop, I whispered, we need to. But Bishop wasn't listening to me. He was staring at the monolith. Because the monolith was changing. Its surface was no longer smooth. Patterns, alien, beautiful, horrifying, spread across it like veins. And beneath the surface, shapes moved. Not human shapes. Limbs. Tendrils. Something reaching upward, trying to break through. Don't go near it, I said. Don't touch. He stepped closer anyway, transfixed. I shouted his name. He reached out. His fingers brushed the monolith. The pulse stopped. The hum went silent. And everything went wrong. Then Bishop touched the monolith. When Bishop touched the monolith, the pulse that had filled the chamber froze. For a single horrifying second, the entire pyramid held its breath. Then the world buckled. A sound like 1,000 metal plates grinding awake thundered through the chamber. Dust rained from the ceiling as the monolith flared with blinding white-blue light, flickering like a dying star trying to ignite. The sarcophagus answered with an even deeper groan, like something inside was stretching for the first time in ages. Hale screamed, not in pain, but in awe. It's waking up. Don't you see? It's been dormant for millennia. The floor lurched violently, cutting him off. The binding symbols carved into the stone ignited, burning with scorching orange fire. The corpses lining the walls jerked in place, dried limbs snapping as the force of the vibration rattled them like puppets. Cold air blasted from hidden vents above, whipping past us with enough force to stagger us backward. The temperature plunged in seconds, frosting my eyelashes, burning my lungs. Move, Bishop barked. He grabbed my arm and shoved me toward the exit. We need to run now. The monolith's light surged, stretching upward in a jagged column that reached the ceiling. The sarcophagus trembled violently, fractures widening with each pulse of the monolith. Something inside hit the interior wall, hard enough to send a shockwave across the chamber. Marin screamed, "It's breaking out!" Hill didn't run. He stood frozen, hands shaking, staring at the monolith like a worshiper watching a god descend. "You don't understand. This is history. This is—" The monolith rippled. Something inside acknowledged his voice. "Run!" I yelled. "Hale, move!" Too late. A tendril of twisting light snapped out from the monolith. Not a beam, not a ray, something fluid, intelligent, searching. It brushed the air inches from Hale's chest, and he collapsed instantly, convulsing as though electricity had surged straight through his bones. Marin grabbed his arm, tried to drag him, but he wasn't conscious. He wasn't breathing. The monolith's light slithered toward her. "Leave him," Bishop yelled. She let go. We ran. The pyramid roared behind us as we burst into the hallway. Walls that had once been smooth now rippled like muscles flexing under skin. The floors shifted beneath our feet, tilting, lifting, dropping in ways that made no physical sense. The architecture was rearranging itself. "Keep to the center," Bishop shouted. "Don't touch the walls." A panel of stone slammed downward like a guillotine inches from Marin's head. She ducked and sprinted faster. Behind us, I heard the sarcophagus splitting open. A wet inhalation. The first breath of something that should never breathe. I didn't look back. The hall in front of us twisted into a spiral. Not a curve, a literal spiral, geometry bending like it was made of string. We had no choice but to follow it. Everything shook. The lights embedded in the walls, where had those been before, flared and dimmed like frantic eyes. Marin's voice crackled through the radio. "Guys, left corridor is closing. Bishop, hurry." The floor buckled again. A section folded upward like origami. The path split. Marin veered right. We veered left. "Marin, stay on comms." I shouted. "Static." "Marin." Bishop barked. "Talk to us." Her voice returned, shaky, breathless. I'm in a corridor. Doors everywhere. They keep opening and closing. Wait. Hold on." A grinding noise drowned her out. The sound of stone scraping stone. Then, "Guys, that's copying me." Her voice warped on the last word, twisting upward in pitch, echoing in a way no radio should. "Who's copying you?" I asked. She didn't answer, but the radio hissed softly, and from somewhere deep in the pyramid, I heard her voice again, not through the radio. In the walls. Repeating. Multiple versions overlapping, each one slightly wrong. "Guys, it's copying me. Copying me. Bishop grabbed my shoulder. "We can't go back for her. We'll die." I wanted to argue. I wanted to scream at him. But the pyramid made the decision for us. The walls behind us clenched inward like a throat swallowing. We ran. The passage ahead shook violently, stone slabs grinding as they shifted positions. A staircase unfolded from the ground, spiraling upward. Bishop didn't hesitate. He sprinted up, and I followed even as the steps retracted behind us like retracting teeth. The floor collapsed where we had just been. Marin's radio emitted one last garbled whisper. "Don't let it open." Then silence. A silence so crushing I almost tripped. I still hear her voice sometimes. But I know it isn't her. The staircase spat us onto a narrow balcony overlooking a shaft of pure darkness. The only exit was a slanted tunnel at the far end. We slid down it, the surface slick like polished bone. Light flared behind us. A tremor rippled through the tunnel. Something massive following us from below, something dragging itself upward with too many limbs. Bishop yelled, "Move." We flew out of the tunnel and landed hard on ice. The surface above, the exterior, was visible at last, glowing faintly through the collapsing hole we had fallen into earlier. The pyramid shook so violently that cracks zigzagged across the chamber roof. Ice rained down in sheets. "We're almost there," Bishop shouted. A shard of ice speared the floor inches from my leg. We sprinted toward the light, lungs burning, legs numb. The tunnel behind us heaved one final time as something slammed into the wall, cracking it open. I didn't turn to see it. We climbed the last few feet, fingers clawing into the ice. Bishop hauled me by the arm, practically throwing me onto the surface. Then, with a thunderous groan, the ground beneath us collapsed completely. The pyramid swallowed its own entrance, and whatever was inside screamed, an echo so loud it rattled the sky. We lay sprawled on the surface, gasping in the frigid air. Snow whipped across the landscape, concealing the trembling beneath the ice. For a moment, we were too shocked to speak, too terrified to move. We thought escaping the pyramid meant we were safe. We were wrong. They didn't even let us catch our breath. The moment Bishop and I staggered into the outpost, frozen, shaking, barely conscious, alarms blared. Within minutes, a convoy of unmarked military transports rolled across the snow, engines rumbling like a warning. Soldiers in insulated black gear swarmed us, separating us, stripping our packs, confiscating every trace of what we'd brought back. I tried to tell them what happened, but they already knew. They moved with the precision of people who had prepared for this exact situation. A medic pressed a mask to my face. "Breathe normally," he said, but his voice was practiced, scripted. He wasn't checking my pulse. He was checking for contamination. They carried me into a heated containment tent where floodlights poured overhead like interrogation lamps. 2 agents sat across from me. No insignias, no ranks, just cold eyes. "Describe the structure you believe you entered," one of them said. "Believe?" I shot back. "It's still under the ice." He didn't blink. "There are no structures in that location. Repeat your statement." They made me repeat it 3 times. On the 4th, the second agent slid a photograph across the metal table, an aerial view of the region. Empty. Flat. Nothing but ice. "This is from this morning," he said. "There is no pyramid." I stared at the photo, throat tightening. It was there. Then why isn't it now? Because it moved, I wanted to say. Or hid. Or sank. Or finished what it needed to do. Instead, I whispered, "You know exactly why." Their silence told me everything. They already had a protocol for this. Behind the thin wall of the tent, I heard another containment door slam shut. Voices arguing. Someone yelling. He was right behind me. How the hell did he slip past us? Hale was dead. Marin was gone. That left only one missing. Bishop. I stumbled to my feet, ignoring the agent ordering me to sit back down. "Where is he?" Bishop made it out with me. "Where'd you take him?" The agent exchanged a glance with his partner. "We never recovered your security detail." "That's impossible." He was holding the rope. He pulled me out. A screen flickered on. Someone had pulled helicopter footage from the recovery team's flight path. Grainy, distant, but unmistakable. There was Bishop trudging across the ice. Alone. No gear. No coat despite the storm. Walking with slow, deliberate steps toward a patch of horizon so white it almost glowed. A void. Not a blizzard. Not terrain. A blankness. Something moved inside it. Something tall, thin, shifting like heat on asphalt. Bishop followed without hesitation. The footage cut to static. I sank back into the metal chair, my heartbeat drowning out the hum of the generators. They kept asking questions, but I wasn't listening. Because something occurred to me. If this video gets claimed by anyone other than me, you'll know they found the channel. And the worst part wasn't the cover-up. It was what I brought home. I didn't notice the first symptom right away. At the debriefing facility, everything was noise, voiced commands, boots on tile, doors slamming. But beneath all of that, I kept hearing myself. Not my voice, exactly, but the shape of my thoughts echoing a split second after I had them, like someone repeating my internal monologue from the other end of a long hallway. The doctors chalked it up to trauma. Lack of sleep. Dehydration. But trauma doesn't whisper your name when you're not thinking it. The second symptom appeared that night. I woke to movement in the corner of my room, my own shadow peeling itself a few inches off the wall before snapping back into place when I blinked. I lay there, frozen, listening to the soft, rhythmic breathing in the dark. My breathing. And something else's. In the morning, I tried to convince myself it was a trick of the light. But when I lifted my shirt to check a bruise from the collapse, I saw something impossible. Thin, branching lines just beneath the skin. Not veins. Not scars. Symbols. The same angular shapes carved into the chamber floor. They pulsed faintly, like embers under ash. I scrubbed at them until my skin burned. They didn't fade. By the 3rd day, the dream started. I'm back in the forbidden chamber, but the architecture is different, alive, shifting, like the corridors that rearranged themselves during the escape. The monolith stands at the center, humming, vibrating with a deep resonance that rattles my bones. Every time I reach out to touch it, I wake gasping, my hand stretched toward the ceiling as if someone else had moved it for me. The dreams always end with the same sensation, something enormous turning its attention toward me. not seeing me, recognizing me. The connection isn't one way. That's when the realization hit. Slow, inevitable, like ice forming across a lake. The pyramid wasn't a tomb at all. Hale was right in the worst possible way. The entity inside wasn't meant to be studied. It wasn't meant to be released. It was meant to be held, contained, bound. And when the sarcophagus cracked, when the monolith reacted to my presence, I think it reached for the closest mind available. Mine. Sometimes, when I look at my reflection, I catch a flicker of movement that doesn't match my expression. A delay, a borrowed mimicry. And the whispering in my thoughts is getting louder, more confident. Less like an echo and more like a second voice learning the rhythm of my own. If you start seeing patterns in this video, stop watching. Don't rewind. Don't freeze frame. The symbols spread through attention. Hale warned us. We just didn't understand in time. I don't think the entity is trapped anymore. I think it's following the tether it made. And there's one last thing you need to hear. If you've made it this far into the video, I need you to listen carefully. Not as subscribers, not as viewers, as the last people I can still reach while I'm myself. I don't know how much time I have left. For the past 3 days, something, has been following me. At first, I thought it was just the paranoia, the side effect of whatever the monolith imprinted onto me. The echoes in my thoughts, the shifting shadows, the symbols burning quietly beneath my skin. Those were already enough to convince anyone they were losing their mind. But paranoia doesn't knock on your door at 3 a.m. The first time it happened, I checked the peephole. The hallway was empty, completely still. But when I stepped back, the knocking started again. 3 slow, deliberate taps, coming from the wrong side of the room. The second time, I heard footsteps behind me on an empty street, matching my pace perfectly. When I stopped walking, they stopped. When I sped up, they sped up. When I turned around, the street was silent. The third time, I finally saw it. I caught a reflection in a shop window, someone standing a few feet behind me. Same jacket, same build, same posture, same silence. For a moment, I thought it was my reflection, but then it tilted its head in a way I didn't, as if testing the movement, trying it on. And when I blinked, it was gone. I don't know if it's a hallucination, a side effect, or something that escaped the pyramid with me. Maybe the entity didn't just connect to my mind. Maybe it copied it. Maybe that distorted voice we heard on Marin's final transmission wasn't the first attempt, just the first one we recognized. I'm recording this in a motel room miles away from home. I've barricaded the door. The lights are on. The symbols on my skin are glowing faintly, and every time I close my eyes, I see the monolith waiting in the dark, pulsing like a heartbeat. I don't know how long I can keep it out, or keep it from becoming me. So here's the only warning I can give you. If another version of me uploads from this channel, don't trust it.